Bechoros Daf Mimches says the Mishnah, if a woman gave birth to twin boys, and at birth the boys got mixed up and we don't know which one is the Bechar, regardless of the mix-up, the father has to pay Pinyan Ben because one of them is definitely a Bechar and he's Chayiv. The same thing would hold true if a man is married to two women, one had children before and one didn't, and they both gave birth to boys and the boys got mixed up. One of them is for sure Bechar, one of them isn't. Says the Mishnah, the father is obligated in Pinyan Ben. If one of them dies within 30 days, the whole chiyuv of Pinyan Ben only occurs after 30 days. And one of them died. The father could say the one that died is the Bechar, and therefore he is Pater. What happens if the father himself dies? Here's where it becomes extremely interesting. According to Rameir, the father dies, and before the Yarshim had a chance to divide the estate, then there's a shibud, they're obligated to the Kohen, they pay him the Pinyan Ben. But if they already divided the estate, then the Kohen doesn't get anything. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the estate is obligated regardless if they divided it or not. If the two women, one gave birth to a male and one gave birth to a female, and we don't know, perhaps the one that has the Bechar, she gave birth to the female, so there is no Bechar, so the Kohen doesn't get anything. According to Rabbi Yirmiyah, if a father died after 30 days, according to everybody, they have to pay the Pinyan Ben. But if the father died before 30, and before they divided the estate, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, it's very similar to a case where two people had the same name in the same city. They were both called Shimon ben Yosef, for instance. Comes the Malvin and says, I have a shtar that says that Shimon ben Yosef owes me money. Now, if you just walked over to one of them, that one could deflect it and say, go to the other one. It's not me, it's the other one. But if they both own one field together in a partnership, then the Malvin can come and take up to half of the field against the chayiv that one of them owes them. Because he says, look, I have a shibud in this field, and if you owe me money, I'm taking my half, and if the other one owes me money, I'm taking my half. Says the Gemara, so according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, in our sugi as well, the two Yarshim, they own one estate. Comes the Kohen, who's like the Malva, and could take from that estate. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, even after they divide the estate, you could say the same thing. Because if you have two Shimon ben Yosefs, and one Shimon ben Yosef went ahead and sold his field to the second Shimon ben Yosef, then the Malva could come to either to the field and take it, because he could say, listen, if it's you, the second one that owes me money, okay, this is my field. And if it's the first one that owed me money, he had no right to sell you the field. I'm taking the field regardless. Says Rav, I don't understand. A field is no better than a guarantor. And the halacha is that if a malva has a guarantor, he can't go to the guarantor. He has to go first to the loiva and the loiva has to prove that he doesn't have money. And only then can he go to the guarantor. How could a kohen go directly to the field, which is the guarantor, without going to the yarshim? In this case, he can't go to the yarshim because each one is going to deflect the claim. So he can't go directly to the field. Therefore, Rava says, what's the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Meir? We're talking in a very specific case. Because if it's a case where there's a lot of money in the inheritance, then the kohen could go and grab his 5 slime regardless if they divided the field or they didn't divide the field. But since it's talking about that they only have exactly 5 slime, and here's where it's very interesting. We have to have a 4 halachas in order to understand this. He says, number 1, every inheritance is 50% an inheritance and 50% a purchase. Because we don't know if yesh breira or ein breira, and therefore, as the suffix, we just say half of it is an inheritance and half of it is not an inheritance. In other words, yesh breira just means that once the children decide who gets what, retroactively, it turns out that that's what they were supposed to get. Or no, they just made a deal between themselves, and therefore it's like a purchase. Since we don't know what to do, we say 50-50. Okay. And we also know that the milvan Torah, in other words, an obligation that the Torah says, such as Pinyan Ben, is like an obligation that's said only with words and not in writing. And something that's said in words and not in writing, you could only go after the inheritance and not after a purchase. So since 50% is an inheritance and 50% is a purchase, they can only go after 50%. So the kohen is only going after 2.5 slime instead of 5 slime. And here's the machlekes. Can a kohen receive 2.5 out of the 5, or perhaps he can only take everything or nothing? That's the machlekes. But according to Rabbi Yehuda is mechulek, and he says no. First of all, he could hold that everything is Yerusha, 100% Yerusha. We don't say 50% purchase. Or he holds that the kohen could go even after a purchase, not only, since it's a milva peh, he could also go after a purchase, not only after Yerusha. Says the Mishnah. If a man has two women, and they both gave birth to males, so he has two b'charim, he has to pay 10 slime, obviously. If one of the two died within 30 days, if he prepaid the pidyon haben, so the kohen has to give back 5 slime. If one of them gave birth to a male, one of them gave birth to a female, or even two males and a female, so it's possible that one of them is not a bechor, one of them is a female, so all he has to pay is 5 slime. In all cases, if there are two females, even if there's two males, a total of 4, 2 females and 2 males, the kohen doesn't get anything because the father could say the 2 females were born first. If one of the wives already had a child and one of them didn't, then he pays 5. If one of them died, he's potter from paying because he'll say that the one that's alive is from the mother that already gave birth. If one gave birth to a male, one gave birth to a female, he's potter completely. 2 people and 2 women, two men with 2 wives, and they both had bechor, so they both have to pay 5 slime. If one of them died, and one of them, they both pay the kohen, so the kohen has to return if they both gave a harsha. They both said, you go sue the kohen for me. If one of them gave birth to a zachar, one of them gave birth to a nekeva, a male and a female, then the fathers are completely potter. They can both deflect and say, my child was the female. However, the male himself has to give a pidyon haben for himself later on. Have a wonderful day.